Good morning, everybody. Wow, what a day. So much going on today. I'm James.
Hi, and I'm Suzanne.
And we're from Mobilise. So we're the tech startup by carers and for carers. And gosh, so lots going on. We're just kind of hearing the results in from the US presidential election. Tomorrow, lockdown kicks off for a lot of people in England. Loads of things up in the air at the moment, and we wanted to have a quick conversation about the different things that we're looking at that people can be doing. Organisations, local authorities, organisations supporting carers can be doing to support carers through this really difficult time, and trying to make that as practical as possible. We've only got a few hours left until lockdown starts, so what are the things, the really practical things that we can be doing to help? And Suzanne, I'm going to kick off by asking you, so you're head of carer support, you're talking to carers across the country all day, every day. What are the different types of carers that we ought to have in mind and that you're seeing that might need different types of support?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really good to remember that behind every door, there's kind of a different story going on, a different situation. But broadly, there are carers out there who are caring 24/7 for a loved one in their home. They may be caring for someone where the relationship is really difficult in their home, and that's become really intense. There are carers caring for their loved ones who are in care homes and they can't even see them. So that's a very different situation. And parent carers looking after children who may or may not be in school, may or may not be able to access services. Carers like me who are caring for their other half, and carers who are working and juggling all of that, people caring for people that aren't in their home, so they're having to travel to deliver that care and worried about keeping them safe. So lots of different situations when you just use the word carer.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we kind of try to recognize that the different questions that are currently floating around in people's minds that are really kind of feeling quite pressing, they will be quite different according to the different situation that you're working at. And so one single form of support for carers is actually quite unlikely to be able to meet all of those different needs, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we've been thinking about the different things that are kind of top of lists for those large groups of carers. And so, I mean, one thing that's really struck me in the conversations we've been having with carers is the importance of information and communication, and how sometimes that communication can be, we don't know the answer to this yet. We're still figuring it out. We think we'll know by next week or whatever it might be. That actually really helps shift the anxiety and enables you to start planning and shift from what would it be? An unknown unknown to a known unknown. And that can be quite helpful. What are the other things that you're seeing that can be quite effective?
I think, getting the right information quickly is helpful. But sometimes, even when you've got all the information, you need to work that through for what does that mean for you? So that two ways that can really help the care in that situation: team support, peer support, talk to other carers like you and work it out, but in a kind of facilitated way. So we're not just revving it up into panic and what have you, but actually sharing the solutions that are working, the things that are helping, how you're approaching stuff, what's making you get through, and remembering what we've learned from the last lockdown. So that peer group knowledge and learning and support is really important. But also sometimes there's just that chance to have that one-to-one chat with somebody about, let me work out this thing for me. I've got to balance these risks. I've got to balance the way that we're doing things and find a way through these things. So that can be really helpful as well. But I think particularly important is whoever they're talking to, that needs to feel like it's someone that absolutely gets it and understands their situation and is prepared to listen before they'll throw the advice out. And, that it is the place where you can freely say what you need to say. A great example on our cuppers last night. Our cuppa last night was all about poo and wee. Where else can you have a really great conversation about that, where you get all the tips, all the stuff you need, and leave thinking you know more, even though it's just other people like you that have been sharing what they've learned. So there's massive power in that group and community at the moment, I think. And that's what's difficult to access.
It's a really interesting thing. You mentioned two things there. One, that piece about peer support often being really effective, because having somebody else who gets it, who understands it, who's been there, who can nod and say, yeah, Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm feeling the same. That can be really powerful. The other bit that you mentioned is the cuppa late last night talking about poo and wee. And another time we're going to go into lots of detail about the poo and the wee issues. But we've done it late last night, and I think that's one of the things that we've picked up. So 60% of people coming to Mobilise are coming effectively kind of out of working hours, either at the weekend or late at night. And Suzanne, why is that important for carers?
Well, if you're working, it might be the only time that you've got to access something for yourself. And I think that's what people are finding now. Time for themselves is really a struggle. Whereas people they were caring for might have been in school, in daycare services, there might have been someone taking them out for an hour, something like that. That might be what's not happening right now. And so during the general working hours, carers aren't free to chat about stuff. And actually, even at, it needs to be our cared for has gone to bed before we're free and able to have a conversation, or they're settled in watching a good TV program or something. So that timing is important, but also sometimes it's just not even okay to talk at any point within that house. It might be the middle of the night is when you can actually have a conversation with somebody. And even then you might not be able to have a phone call or join a Zoom call. You might actually need to have some sort of text conversation, like a Facebook group, like a one-to-one WhatsApp chat or something like that, where you can say what you need to say without the person you're caring for overhearing. You don't want to hurt them. You don't want to upset them. You don't want them to worry about you. But also where that relationship is really difficult and strained right now, you need somewhere where you can be honest and people will get what you're saying and not judge you for kind of how difficult you're finding it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And one of the things that we've seen is that if you're working something through in your mind, to actually articulate it out loud is a huge step. And that somehow makes something real and can be quite scary. So actually some of those text communications can be really effective. So there's a couple of really practical steps there, if I can just sort of draw them out. One of them is thinking about out of hours support. Another is thinking about how we can facilitate that peer support community, bringing people together and really encouraging them to have the conversations with each other. And also thinking of ways around a telephone conversation necessarily. Now, Suzanne, you and I know that is really hard because carer centres, local authorities have been really pushing Zoom calls, but they're not always the most convenient way for carers to engage. So if it's not a telephone call, if it's not a Zoom call, what are the other options that might be available for supporting carers?
I think a well-facilitated Facebook group is good. Not everyone's on Facebook, but a large chunk of people are. And I think Facebook hits a certain kind of age category quite well too. And, making that group not a place to just come and have a rant and a moan and all just have a big old pity party, because that's not helpful to anybody. The initial offloading is helpful, but it's what we do.
It's really therapeutic, right?
How do we lift people up? How do we say, look, I'm with you, I get it, and inject some kind of what we call uplift. It's not fake positivity. It's actually genuinely how do you kind of support someone in that. So a Facebook group might be a thing. It might be an email conversation, a text conversation that could be scheduled or could be an ad hoc place. We're looking at using other online platforms where people can sort of text, just use text to speak and have that kind of peer group conversation, but in quite a small group. Facebook groups, getting huge and all that's not helpful. People quite often like to know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
And some people quite like the anonymity of a group as well, where they don't know people. So creating those different opportunities that are going to work for people. And I guess recognizing tech doesn't work for everybody either. So it can be something as simple as a phone call, but maybe it's a pre-scheduled phone call. So rather than organizations having phone lines open 24 hours, maybe someone can book in at a time that works for them and have a call at that time, so that we can kind of spread resources out really to some meaningful times for people. And
you've been along with your team, you've been running virtual cuppas every day since March the 20th, which I think is an extraordinary thing. And so all of the insights that we've picked up through those conversations are being put into a report that we're publishing next week. So if anybody's up for learning about that, sharing their experience, we're hosting an online event on the 13th of November. One day I'm going to figure out how to add links on this thing, but I'll have to do it after the event now in a comment. And anybody who's supporting carers is welcome to come along to that. Suzanne, thanks so much for the insight that you've just shared, and for all that you're doing to support carers. So it's a really tough time for carers at the moment, but there are some specific things that we can all be doing that can really hone in and help address some of that anxiety, give people a space, and enable people to connect with each other, to support each other. Suzanne, thank you, and have a great day.
And you, take care. Thank you. Bye, everyone.